While I was reading this and going through all of the drugs that she said that she was addicted to, one of them I had never heard of, and it's called Quaaludes, Quaaluds. So I looked it up because I was curious. And Wikipedia says that it is a sedative hypotonic drug, and it is a general central nervous system depressant. So when she's talking about getting high off these drugs, some of them were just like the street names and drugs and stuff that I had heard of before, but this one I was kind of like, what? So I had to look this one up, and it says that it was a hard recreational drug in South Africa in 1960, so I thought that was kind of weird, but yeah. She talks about her experiences in a mental hospital, and it kind of made me think that it would be super interesting to work in a mental hospital. It'd be kind of eerie at the same time, but I like to know why people are the way they are and what makes them tick. And so I think it would be interesting to see people with mental disorders kind of going on with their everyday life, and I think it would be something that I'd be interested in to volunteer there to eventually work in a mental hospital. Also, on that note, some of my favorite scary movies are in insane asylum, movies, those ones. So, I don't know, I've always been interested by people with mental illnesses because I feel like they're still there, but they're not. It's hard to explain. They're giant puzzles to me, and I think it's super interesting. Her trip to Jamaica, at first, sounded really cool, because she got to go snorkeling, and it would just be cool to go to Jamaica. I've never been out of the U.S., so just anywhere tropical and exotic seemed interesting to me. But then, everything that happened down there kind of turned me off to going to Jamaica a little bit, because it was kind of scary. But I feel like just reading this, I'm in my head, I'm no, don't go with him, don't get in the car with that one guy who is just trouble. And some of these decisions that she makes are obviously so self-destructive, and it's crazy just to sit here and be reading it and be like, no, don't do that, and she can't hear you, obviously, and she's gonna do it anyways, but you're just screaming at this book right now. But I thought that was funny. When she talks about her accounts in the hospital and wet packing and all of the things she has to go through in the quiet rooms and the struggles, it makes me feel anxious just to read it, because I feel trapped with her, because she's such a good author that you're there with her going through everything. And it makes me super anxious to just read about these things, because it's I gotta put the book down for a second and be like, okay, everything's good, but you feel everything that she's talking about, and you feel for her. That's one of the things that points to the fact that she's a really good author, because she kind of traps you in there with her. And I've really gained a lot of sympathy for people who live like that, because it is extremely hard not only to be trapped in a hospital, but to live trapped in your own mind, and it's just unfathomable how difficult that would be, and what she's going through. I can't even begin to imagine. On page 162, her brother talks about how he's going to Johns Hopkins, and I got so jealous, because that would be so awesome to go there. And her brother kind of reminded me of myself a little bit in his interest with medicine and his college choices. And also, I was reading further, they're talking about the University of Chicago, and I would love to go there for med school. I applied there for undergrad, but it's so expensive, and their acceptance rate is 16%, so I'm thinking that's going to be a no. But that would be awesome to go there. It's in a great place, and they're really, really good for med school. And one of my favorite shows actually is based off of, he teaches at Lake Michigan University or something, but the setting and the location of everything in Chicago, you can tell it's based off of the University of Chicago. And actually I'm going to put some links to that show, because he, in that show, is a neurology professor at this university, and he suffers from paranoid schizophrenia. And one of his older patients, comes back, and she actually works for the FBI, and she knows that this guy, as sick as he is brilliant, and she asks him to help with her cases, into figuring out if these people are mentally capable of doing things, and it turns out throughout the show that he just keeps coming back, and he really likes these puzzles, and he functions better without his medication because during their FBI cases, he will see things and hallucinate things that actually help him with the case. So it's a really interesting show. So I'm going to try to see if I can find some of those episodes. I think there's only one season. It's recently new. But it has Eric McCormack in it from Will and Grace, and it would be a good show to watch on mute because he's just so attractive. But I will find some links to that, and if I cannot, you should look into watching it because it's actually a really, really good show. So throughout the book, I kind of didn't take a lot of notes because it was just mainly her struggles with being in and out of the hospital and trying one pill after another. So I didn't really take a lot of notes about that, but it did make me anxious to think about all of the things that she was going through, and it was a lot. I can't imagine anyone having to deal with as much as she did, and hanging in there for as long as she did. She had a huge amount of drive to get well that I think a lot of patients don't have, and I think that they need. But it's hard to find that motivation after everything. All the voices, just being exhausted, having every ounce of energy put into ignoring her own world and living in the actual outside world. So I didn't take a lot of notes on that. And the next thing that I did take notes on was on page 235. And one of the doctors is talking, and she has the same idea of the same way of treating a patient as I mentioned in the first blog entry about being humane. And it says, we felt otherwise. We felt that hallucinations or not, there was a person inside there, and that we could reach that person if we tried. That also reminded me of the Shutter Island post that I also put in there, that these people might be crazy, but they were at one point people, and they still are people. And the fact that they are mentally insane doesn't make them any less of a person. And they, the people at this New York hospital and in Shutter Island are trying every angle to try to get through to patients, whether it's medication or therapy or like they did with Lori, trying to help her to be able to live with the voices rather than trying to get rid of them completely, because they knew that they kind of couldn't get rid of them completely. But being able to live and manage that was their angle, and I think that worked pretty well. I felt tired myself reading about how her parents come to visit her every day and put on a brave face, and then have to leave her and see her looking out the window at them. It was just heartbreaking to see that they had to leave their child, and they never really knew what Lori they were going to get when they visited either. They didn't know if she'd be there, if she would be in her own world, if she'd be angry at them, how that was going to turn out, and just not knowing and not having a plan, not knowing if she was ever going to get better, just seems so tiring to me, and just reading it, I feel exhausted. On page 250, when Dr. Dollar gave her a bunch of pennies to remind her of her when she was gone on vacation, I thought that was a really cute idea, and when I read that she swallowed them, first of all, I don't know how anyone could swallow a penny. I couldn't imagine doing that. Second of all, I thought it was horrible, but at the same time, it was kind of cute that she swallowed them because she felt closer to her when she ate them. I thought that was kind of cute, but at the same time, it's so horrible. What that would do to her stomach, I have no idea, but it was cute that she had grown so attached to someone as to where before she couldn't maintain relationships with anyone because she was so paranoid with everyone and what they would do to her and what she would do to them. But the fact that Dr. Dollar really got through to her was a really good thing. Some quotes that I have here that really stood out were on page... Oh, it doesn't give me a page. Okay. It says, mental illness is not just about drugs and biology, it's about people. It is clozapine that made Lori's final recovery possible. What made her recovery so successful is Lori herself. That's very true. Half of the battle is mental and half of it is biological. You need to find that chemical balance in your brain, but at the same time, making her aware that she was ill was probably one of the most influential things that actually helped her recover. Without her knowledge of her being sick, I don't think there would have been any possibility of her ever getting better. The fact that she can live with these voices and battle them and realize that they aren't really there and that she is really sick is what I think helped more than just the medication. Of course, one or the other wouldn't really work. They needed to be done together, the therapy and the medication, but the medication alone would not have saved Lori. When she gets really sick again towards the end, she talks about how she sees all of these really gruesome, horrible Halloween masked creatures, and she wouldn't go in her bed for a long time because she could see them sitting there, and she would write in her journal how they were watching her and sitting there. And I read that, and I was actually in bed, and it was kind of creepy, and it was dark. But watching scary movies makes me uncomfortable. I love them, but I get scared really easily, and to actually have to live in a scary movie every day would be unbearable for me. To see all of these weird creatures, especially since she saw them and they were so real to her, would scare me beyond belief. The fact that she actually kept it together amazes me. It's just incredible. I would not have been able to do it.